El-Azariah, on the outskirts of Jerusalem, derived from the Greek Lazarian. It means the place of Lazarus, and it's believed to be the site where Jesus raised his friend from the dead.
The tradition tying Lazarus to this spot is strong, and it's not only a Christian tradition. The Muslim faith also venerates Lazarus as having been here on this place.
There is a record of worship here since the 4th century. Today, the tomb believed to be that of Lazarus is 33 feet underground.
This chamber is actually built at a much later date after Jesus, but it's built over this small place here, which is actually carved out of the bedrock. This is understood by tradition to be the tomb of Lazarus.
In keeping with tradition, Martha and Mary prepare their brother for burial.
It must have been a desolate moment. They knew he was dead. They knew that there was no life left in him. It was the custom, but you bind someone's face knowing that there is no longer any breath or possibility. And so it was the end for their brother.
He's been dead for over 3 days. And that's a very significant point indeed, because many early Jews who did believe in an afterlife believed that once somebody has been dead for 3 days, there's no hope of reviving them. There's no hope of them coming back from the dead.
The sisters are still grieving when Martha gets word. Jesus has come.
Martha rushes out right away, almost impulsively, in keeping with this assertive figure that she is. She goes out and tells him what had happened. It tells him that he's too late and expresses her sorrow.
If you had been here, my brother would not have died.
If you had just been here, you might have spared Lazarus dying. And there's a lot of poignancy and urgency to this story.
But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him.
Your brother will rise again.
I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day.
She has some understanding or some belief in the resurrection, as many of the Jews of the 1st century had, and she says, well, I understand that he will rise again in the last day, but that's not what Jesus is talking about.
I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die.
Jesus reminds her of things possibly that they had spoken in her own home. That he is the resurrection and the life.
Do you believe this?
I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God.
So even though somebody dies, I can bring them back after that as well. And so it's a reassurance for now, but it's also a reassurance for later.
Where's Mary?
There's a nice detail here where it says, Martha goes back into the house and she speaks to her sister quietly. She speaks to her quietly, of course, because it's a house in mourning.
The teacher is here, and he's calling for you.
The Greek term didaskalos simply means teacher, and this is what Martha calls Jesus. This reflects true belief in Jesus, who he is. He's certainly a teacher, but inadequate belief. He's much more than just a teacher. He's actually a person who can raise the dead.
Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died.
She has a deeper faith in this Jesus. And she was able to look beyond the friendship and reflect on the words that he may have spoken to her. And she trusted that he can do something about the situation.
When Martha confronts Jesus with her question, "Where were you?" Jesus responds as a teacher. When Mary confronts Jesus with the same question, Jesus' response is much more emotional. He weeps. One of the shortest verses in the gospel is Jesus began to weep. It's very powerful to hear because it reminds us of Jesus' humanity.
This stands out because Jesus does not portray a lot of emotion in many other times. So why here? Why here is he so troubled? It brings us to that issue of how close of a friend this Lazarus was, and perhaps that Jesus is doubting, just for a moment, that this is God's will.
So I think there's no question that it reflects the deep and profound friendship he had with this family.
Where have you laid the body?
There's also this very deep frustration that even as long as he has been with them, they still don't understand him, and they still don't understand what he's capable of doing.
Jesus has shown his humanity. Now he will prove his divinity.
Lazarus!
And set the course for his own death and resurrection.